All right, good morning. My name is Brett Hiemenz, and I'm in Solutions Delivery at GSK. Jonathan Lee couldn't have produced a better lead up to mine. We have a very complimentary presentation to follow, and given earlier this year by Shane Weaver. So I'll be his stunt double for today on implementation of ChemAxon in the solution, or in the SOA environment, or service-oriented architecture environment. So this story goes back a ways for us. We've been working in SOA for about 10 years, which is actually predates things like SOAP and the formalization of it. And we've actually derived great benefits from it. And what we found is that we can use service-oriented architecture to separate our applications from the underlying toolkits, which we have many. And as you see here, I'm going to discuss why we would do this and how we would do this. So as to the why, and I think that, as I said, Jonathan's already sort of hinted at that. In GSK, we've got pretty much every technology under the sun represented somewhere in the company, and just about every computer language. And this is great for diversity and great for exploring new ideas, but it's really, really difficult to support. And in recent times, we're finding ourselves having to trim and kind of simplify onto particular technologies. And recently, we've kind of gotten down to .NET, Oracle. We still have a lot of Java applications, and we still use that. But we're phasing out things like C++, Perl, Tcl, Fortran, believe it or not. Plenty of other technologies that we have in our technological museum. But when we standardize on these things, the idea is to simplify both our development environment and the support costs. So how do we go about doing that? We need to analyze what we have, migrate some of them to the newer technologies, and of course, make the hard decisions to retire some of them. As part of that process, we find that in our technology museum that we have a lot of different vendors represented that in many cases we don't use that much, or it does not justify its cost. So we've had to look at those very hard, make some hard decisions, and consolidate, or just remove them altogether. So I gave a presentation last fall that kind of described our web services and how it was. And this is actually, the top level hasn't changed very much. We have chemistry lookup, structure search, I mean the basic capabilities, translation of one format to another, calculating simple properties, calculating complex properties, models, that kind of stuff. We kept that in place because that allows us to deal with the complexity of the stuff under the hood. Lots of different technologies, lots of toolkits, cartridges, for various reasons, have been used to satisfy these various services. And we had good reasons for having these. Now, one particular vendor might be good at doing mole file coordinates to smiles. Another vendor has a great Oracle data cartridge. Another vendor might do the smarts conversion a little bit better. And of course, as always, we've got some in-house stuff that we've done. But that's hard to maintain, and we found a vendor that actually kind of checked all the boxes for us. We figured ChemAxon did a lot of the stuff we needed. Not trying to change the world, basically taking best-of-breed ideas and best-of-breed technologies and putting it in a nice, tidy package. We found they had a nice toolkit, full-featured toolkit, a performant cartridge product, plus they were working in a new space, at least at the time we started investigating this, into some desktop applications. Instant JChem for Excel. As I already mentioned, they were working with languages that were very in line with what we were looking at. .NET, Java, Oracle as a technology, as well as support for formats that we know and love. Smiles and Mole File. But it wasn't just the products they were putting together that we enjoyed and that we thought was a good thing for our company. It was their commitment to continuous improvement, very responsive to changes that we request or ideas that we present, or even bugs that we point out. We've been getting a lot of quick response on that, and it's been very good arrangement. We also found, believe it or not, that some of the in-house stuff that we had done actually was performed by their toolkit. So we got to replace a fair bit of that as well. And of course, as always, it's got to perform well. And it did. So this is what we ended up with. Now you'll notice the top didn't change. The services are still in place. But under the hood, we were able to replace a whole host of different cartridges, toolkits, in-house tools. Not all of them. Yeah, we had a couple GSK in-house tools. But that's okay. Most of them we were able to replace with ChemAxon. Now I say this is to be. We're pretty close to that now. How'd we get here? Yeah, it's a tough road. We have to look very hard at the vendor usage that we have. Basically, analyze all the licenses that are out there. Say, do you really use this? Do you really need this? This has been sitting on your server for years. You haven't updated it in a long time. Are you really using this product? Is it up to date? How many people does it serve? When we find that they're not really used, revoke them. Or, if we find that they are used, we try to take some of these important applications and migrate them to service-oriented architecture. Not directly to ChemAxon specifically, or any technology, except to service-oriented architecture allows us to put whatever vendor under the hood. So we move them to the services that we had in place. There were competing services. Other people had better ideas, got the best of breed together, and retired some of the services that didn't quite make the cut. And finally, once we had people hitting the web service layer, we were able to migrate the toolkits that were under the hood. So we saw a whole host of them there, simplified down to the one toolkit. The clients never know the difference because they're hitting the services directly. This is the objective that we're looking for. We wanted to minimize this business impact because it could be very impactful. Everyone's got their favorite tool. The idea was once we get them into the service-oriented architecture, when we change to a different toolkit is not as important as the fact that we can do it. Furthermore, we found that we can move or pull out of applications, where possible, the actual business rules that are embedded in that application. If you have a dozen applications, each one trying to implement the same business rules, someone's going to make a mistake. One's going to get out of sync with the others. One's going to be older. You move those business rules back into the service. You have a central place for supporting that, a central place to make those changes. And because you have the services as the shield between the toolkit and the application, we can ensure the downtime is minimized, or not at all. And finally, we looked at the total cost of ownership here. How much does this cost over time? Now, we analyzed taking 42 applications and migrating them to the ChemAxon toolkit. Just each one of these applications. And we thought, okay, let's compare that against if these applications were using a service-oriented architecture, how much would that cost to migrate those over to ChemAxon? And what you see is we had one place to support, one place to modify the business rules, one place to test by having them in the services, and versus doing it for each and every application, migrating each and every application over to support, and having basically passing on those business rules to the support people. This turned out to be quite an expensive proposition. And we estimated that after about 10 years, it was going to cost over 100% more. So once we had the service-oriented architecture in place, it gave us the freedom to do some pretty cool things. And that is we could actually find a place, we could actually take a common problem, solve it in the service, and then make it available to a host of applications, rather than solving it in each and every application. In this case, it's just rendering structures. Oftentimes on a web page, any common web page, you want to be able to render a structure based on, say, a smiles. You solve the problem once, get a good quality rendering, make it very easy to integrate that, you're in good shape. You don't have to figure out that problem for each and every application. So we used our service-oriented architecture and the load balance servers that we had in place, so all the common elements, and we ended up with, although it might be a little hard to read, this one tag that allows you to render a structure, a very simple HTML tag you can embed on your page. So take that the next step. Try to do something that is generally hard to do, or can be hard to do if you don't have the right tools. Dynamic alignment. Before, we were using HTML, JavaScript, a bunch of Ajax-y stuff that really took a lot of time, and it was custom code. Basically, just to align 10 structures took 26 seconds. 100 structures, 200 seconds. No one's going to wait for that. But with this new thing in place, and ChemAxon's built-in ability to do alignment, all we had to do was add an argument to the structure picture service and basically let the server side take care of the business. We ended up with the structure aligned as we needed, and it was a much more performant result. Went down to 7 seconds for 100 structures, which we considered to be pretty good. So that's where we are today. We pretty much standardized much of our stack onto ChemAxon toolkits. But the reason why was to simplify both in terms of support and cost. And the how is tricky. I mean, you do have to commit to service-oriented architecture. You do have to sometimes refactor existing applications to get there. And it's not always easy. But we've done this particular project for about a year and a half, 2 years. And I think we're starting to really reap the benefits. And we feel that going forward, this will be much more supportable, much more testable, and much more robust. Now we have this service-oriented architecture in place. We're looking more closely at desktop applications like Instant JChem and JChem for Excel. And I think we have a follow-up discussion on that, presentation on that later. Thank you for your time.
Okay, do we have some questions? Pat?
So I'm just wondering how you handle this on a global basis.
Right.
So are you deploying these services out at individual sites, or are you just hitting one essentially central place for service-oriented architecture globally?
Good question. Currently, we have a central place for that. There have been some talks of having mirrored services, but right now we have a central place for that. So we do sometimes incur some issues with latency, but like I said, there's some talks about synchronizing that at a future date.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So Jörg Schmiedler, Roche. I have just a question. Are you planning to use Enterprise Service Bus, or are you using Enterprise Service Bus?
That is the plan, yes. We do not have that in place as yet, but that is one of the reasons that we're going with service-oriented architecture, is to move into that space. The details are being worked out, though.